Today, we're diving deep into the economics of this AI boom we're all living through. We're going to peel back the layers of hype to look at a truly staggering financial gamble. One that started with a clever little chatbot and has, in just 2 years, morphed into a potential $7 trillion problem.
And right away, you hit this central, bizarre paradox. The CEO of OpenAI, probably the most talked about company on Earth right now, has admitted out loud that his main product loses money on every single paying customer. And Wall Street's reaction? To value his company in the hundreds of billions. It makes no sense. And that's the mystery we're investigating.
So where did this all begin? Let's go back to November 30th, 2022. It was just a normal Wednesday, nothing special. And then, this small research lab, OpenAI, quietly released a thing called ChatGPT. And within like 48 hours, the entire tech world had a new obsession.
And the speed of this thing was just staggering. I mean, look at this. It took Instagram 2.5 years to get to 100 million users. Facebook took 4.5 years. ChatGPT did it in 60 days. It became the fastest growing app in human history. That kind of velocity didn't just create buzz, it created pure, unadulterated panic in the halls of big tech.
You know, inside Google, apparently, it was a complete code red meltdown. And you can't blame them. They had actually invented the core technology behind all of this. It's called the transformer model. Their people wrote the research papers. But they were too cautious, too worried about the risks, the lawsuits, the bad press, so they sat on it. OpenAI didn't. They shipped first. And in tech, that's almost everything.
So what happened next can only be described as a gold rush, an absolute frenzy. Suddenly, just putting the letters A and I in your pitch deck was like having a license to print money. Capital flooded the market, chasing literally any idea that had an AI spin on it.
Microsoft really kicked the whole thing off. They just threw a staggering $10 billion at OpenAI to lock in their spot. That one move was a signal to everybody else. The race is on, and the price of entry is going to be astronomical. And the mania just got crazier from there. By the middle of 2023, you had companies with no product, no revenue, sometimes just a team and an idea, raising $100 million. We're talking AI-powered toothbrushes, AI recipe generators. One company even raised $30 million to build an AI that summarizes what other AIs say. It was a wild time.
But the real insanity? It was happening behind the scenes, with the supply of these things called GPUs. These specialized computer chips basically became more valuable than gold. Just renting a single top-of-the-line GPU costs about $3 an hour. But you don't need one, you need hundreds, thousands. A small cluster of 500 of them cost over $1.1 million a month just to rent. And companies were still hoarding them with year-long wait lists.
So the party was in full swing. Money was flying everywhere. But as that initial high started to fade, somebody in the back of the room started doing some basic math and asked the one really uncomfortable question that was about to change everything.
Yeah, for all the talk about changing the world and these insane valuations, nobody seemed to have a good answer to the most basic question in business. What does it actually cost to run this thing? And then the answer came straight from the top. Sam Altman, the face of this whole revolution, just comes out and says it. We are losing money on every single pro subscriber. Their success was literally making their losses bigger. The more people loved and used their product, the deeper the hole they were digging.
So you have to wonder, how did this company, valued at hundreds of billions, decide on the price for its main product? Was it some complex financial model? Deep market research? Nope. According to sources, their strategy was to test two prices, $20 and $42, and just see which one people complained about less. The pricing strategy was, essentially, vibes. And here's the result of all that. The 2024 financials for OpenAI are pretty stark. They brought in $3.7 billion in revenue, but lost $5 billion. They didn't just miss a profit, they lost substantially more money than they even made. Okay, and here is where the numbers just go off the rails. Industry analysts are now projecting that the AI sector will need, get ready for this, $6.7 trillion in infrastructure investment by 2030. That is not a typo. Trillion, with a T. Mostly for just the raw hardware and power to run it all. So to justify spending almost $7 trillion, the AI industry needs to be pulling in about $2 trillion a year in revenue by 2030. Right now, the entire industry makes about $200 billion. That's a 10x gap. The growth chart to get from here to there isn't a gentle curve. It's a vertical line. It's a hockey stick drawn by someone who's never seen ice.
So as all these financial questions were getting louder, the technology itself and its legal foundations started showing some really serious cracks, and that initial excitement started turning into something much more dangerous: doubt.
The models started to hallucinate. That's the nice way of saying they just started completely making things up. They were citing academic papers that didn't exist, inventing legal cases that never happened, and just generating stats from some other dimension. Trust, which is the foundation of any technology, was starting to erode. And this wasn't just some abstract issue. It had real-world consequences. I mean, in one now famous example, Google's AI search feature confidently told people to put glue on their pizza to make the cheese stick better. Why? Because it learned it from an old joke on Reddit. It just highlights this huge risk of training these things on the unfiltered chaos of the internet.
And then the lawyers arrived. The New York Times sued OpenAI. Getty Images sued Stability AI. Artists, authors, musicians, they all started filing lawsuits, all asking the same basic question. Did you train your AI on my copyrighted work without asking me? And the answer, almost always, was yes. This poses a massive existential threat to the very data these things are built on.
So, let's recap. We have insane financial losses, technology that can be unreliable, and an absolute avalanche of lawsuits. This looks and smells like a classic bubble, but it isn't popping, not like the dot-com bubble did. Which leads us to the final and maybe most important question: why? Why is this thing still going? Well, the answer really comes down to who's blowing up the bubble. The dot-com era was fueled by venture capitalists who eventually ran out of cash. This AI bubble is different. It's being funded by big tech giants, Microsoft, Google, Meta, companies that are printing billions in profit from their other businesses. They aren't investing in AI because it's profitable now. They're investing because they are terrified of being left behind. Think of it like a high-stakes poker game, right? But the top players all have basically unlimited chips. If Microsoft gets out of the game, Google wins. If Google folds, Amazon wins. Nobody can afford to be the first one to blink. So they all just keep raising the stakes, throwing billions more into the pot, no matter what cards they're actually holding. You know, historically, bubbles burst when something real happens that forces everyone to stop pretending. It's usually one of three things. 1, the money disappears, interest rates go up, funding dries up. 2, you get a huge, spectacular failure, think FTX in crypto, that shatters everyone's confidence. Or 3, one of those giants at the poker table finally looks at their hand and just says, "I'm out." Right now, none of those things has happened. The big guys are still spending. We haven't had that catastrophic public meltdown yet. Reality is showing cracks, sure, but it hasn't broken the game. The numbers are insane, but a bubble doesn't burst because of hype alone. It bursts when one of those giants finally says, "That's enough." We're not at the explosion, we're at the tightening. It's the inhale before the scream, the tension just before the snap. And the only question left is, when does it break?